chosen one. Why does your mouth feel wired shut right now? Why have the words you've been rehearsing all week suddenly died on your tongue? Why does every conversation you try to start feel like pushing against an invisible wall? Stop. Listen to me carefully. Heaven interrupted your scroll today for a reason you don't yet understand. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. It will shake everything you thought you knew about timing, about speaking, about the power hidden in your silence. But somewhere deep in your spirit, in that sacred chamber where only truth can echo, you already know this. December 3rd is not just another Tuesday. It's a threshold, a spiritual checkpoint that God has marked on heaven's calendar with your name written in gold. And beloved, if you open your mouth on the wrong frequency, at the wrong moment, you will unlock a door that was meant to stay sealed. You didn't find this message. This message found you. I don't know if you're sitting alone in your kitchen with cold coffee, or lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering why rest won't come. But I know this, you've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange pressure in your chest, that warning in your spirit, that quiet voice whispering, "Not yet, don't speak yet." That's not fear. That's heaven positioning you for something so magnificent that your premature words could abort it before it's born. Here's what breaks my heart, and listen closely if you miss this moment, if you speak what you're not supposed to speak. Something sacred that God has been cultivating in silence may never break through the soil. The blessing that's been growing roots in the darkness needs just a few more days of your holy restraint. Your tongue is a key, chosen one. On the right day it unlocks miracles. On the wrong day it releases chows you never intended. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and honor every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead. But right now, if something in you is already trembling, if your spirit recognizes this word before your mind can explain it, I need you to do something. Type 3 words below, "I'm listening." That's not just a comment. That's your covenant with heaven that you're ready to understand why silence. Why now? Why December 3rd? Some blessings grow roots only in the soil of silence. And what's about to sprout in your life requires these final days of sacred restraint. The question isn't whether you believe me. The question is, can you feel it already? How many times have you sat at your own dinner table feeling like a stranger? How many family gatherings have you endured where your grandchildren stare at screens instead of your face? How many times have you tried to share the wisdom of 70, 80, 90 years of living, only to watch eyes glaze over with indifference? You've carried burdens no one asked about. You've survived wars, some on foreign soil, others in your own living room. You've buried people you loved more than life itself. And now, in these years when the world says you should be resting, you find yourself fighting the hardest battle of all. The battle to be heard, to matter, to know that your voice still counts for something. But what if I told you that right now, in this very season, God is asking you to do the one thing that terrifies you most? He's asking you to be silent. Not because your voice doesn't matter, but because it matters so much that the enemy has been waiting for you to use it at precisely the wrong moment. You see, beloved, there's a war being waged over your words right now. And December 3rd sits at the center of it like a throne no one else can see. Let me take you back 3,000 years. Moses was 80 years old, your age, perhaps older, when he stood before Pharaoh. But do you know what Moses did for the 40 years before that moment? He was silent, completely silent, hidden in the wilderness, tending sheep, feeling forgotten, wondering if the calling he'd sensed as a young man had been nothing but foolish pride. 40 years of silence, 40 years of obscurity. 40 years of watching the sun rise and set over the same barren desert, while back in Egypt, his people were crying out for deliverance he couldn't give them. But that silence wasn't emptiness. That silence was preparation, because when God finally said, "Now," when Moses finally opened his mouth before the most powerful man on earth, his words didn't just echo in Pharaoh's palace. They shook the foundations of an empire and set a nation free. Your silence right now isn't punishment, it's positioning. Think about Jesus standing before Pilate. The religious leaders were screaming accusations. The crowd was howling for blood. Pilate himself was demanding answers. And what did Jesus do? He stood there in complete silence. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he knew that some moments require the power of restraint more than the power of speech. Isaiah 53:7 tells us he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. The Son of God chose silence. And that silence accomplished what 10,000 words never could. Here's what you need to understand, dear one. Even the ocean pulls back before it forms the biggest wave. The winter forest looks dead, yet roots deepen under quiet snow. There are seasons when growth happens underground, in the dark, in the silence, where no one can see it, measure it, or interrupt it. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange heaviness when you try to speak certain things. That inexplicable hesitation before you make that phone call, send that text, confront that person who's been on your mind for weeks. You thought it was fear. You thought it was age making you timid. You thought it was your voice getting weaker. But what if it was God's hand gently closing your mouth because he knows something you don't? What if heaven has been protecting you from speaking words that would release the wrong thing into the atmosphere around your life? There is a threat around you right now. I don't say that to frighten you, but to prepare you. And your silence, your obedience to this divine restraint, is the shield that's keeping what God has been building from being destroyed before it's complete. Elijah understood this. After calling down fire from heaven, after defeating 450 prophets of Baal, after seeing God move in spectacular, undeniable power, Elijah found himself alone in a cave running for his life. And when God finally spoke to him, it wasn't in the earthquake. It wasn't in the fire. It wasn't in the mighty wind that tore the mountains apart. 1 Kings 19:12 says God came in a still small voice, a whisper, the kind of voice you can only hear when everything else goes quiet. You've been seeking God in the noise. You've been looking for him in the big moments, the loud victories, the dramatic breakthroughs. But he's been waiting for you in the whisper, in the stillness, in the sacred silence that December 3rd represents. I know what some of you are thinking right now, but I've been silent for too long already. I've been overlooked, dismissed, talked over. I've been the one who kept the peace while everyone else spoke their mind. When is it my turn? Listen to me carefully. This isn't about being silenced by people. This is about being strategically positioned by God. There's a massive difference between being shut down by humans and being shut up by heaven for your own protection and promotion. If you've ever been punished for telling the truth too soon, stay with me. If you've ever watched a relationship explode because you said what needed to be said before the other person was ready to hear it, this next part is for you. Because what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly what's at stake if you speak too soon, and what's waiting for you if you can hold your tongue just a little bit longer. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal to you has been hidden in the spiritual realm, but God is pulling back the veil right now because your next 72 hours will determine whether you walk into the greatest breakthrough of your life or watch it slip through your fingers like sand. December 3rd is not just another date on your calendar. It's a threshold, a divine checkpoint where heaven seals decisions that have been pending over your life for months, maybe years. And here's what the enemy knows that you're just now discovering. He has exactly 3 days to sabotage what God is about to finalize. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange tension in the atmosphere around you. That unexplainable irritation rising in people who are usually calm. That sudden flood of old wounds resurfacing in conversations. That's not coincidence, beloved. That's warfare, strategic, calculated, demonic warfare aimed at one target: your mouth. Because the enemy understands something that most believers miss. On December 3rd, heaven seals decisions. And he is rushing, desperately rushing, to provoke your mouth before that seal dries. Think about it. How many times in the last 48 hours have you felt an almost irresistible urge to say something, to correct someone, to defend yourself, to speak your mind about a situation that's been bothering you for weeks? How many times have people around you, people who know exactly which buttons to push, suddenly started pushing them all at once? That's not them. That's through them. The enemy is using people close to you as triggers. Your own children saying things that cut deeper than any stranger ever could. Your spouse bringing up issues you thought were buried and forgiven. Your friends suddenly questioning decisions you made in faith. Even strangers, that clerk at the grocery store who was unnecessarily rude, that driver who cut you off in traffic, that phone call that felt designed to steal your peace. Every single provocation has one purpose: to get you talking when God has called you to silence. You've lived long enough to know, and I need you to really hear this: one wrong word can damage a relationship you spent years building. One sentence spoken in anger can undo a decade of trust. One comment made in frustration can close a door that God was 3 days away from opening permanently. Proverbs 18:21 says it plainly: death and life are in the power of the tongue. Not tomorrow's tongue. Not next week's tongue. The tongue you're holding right now, in this very moment, carries the power to birth life or release death into your December. Your tongue has been used against you before, hasn't it? You've spoken too soon and watched opportunities evaporate. You've said what you felt instead of what you heard from God, and paid for it in ways that still ache when you think about them. You've defended yourself when heaven was already fighting on your behalf, and in doing so, you disqualified yourself from the victory God had prepared. But this time God is saying stop. Hold your peace. Guard your mouth like it's the gate to your inheritance. Because that's exactly what it is. Here's what's really happening in the invisible realm right now. The blessing that's been assigned to your life is in final preparation. Angels have been positioning resources, aligning divine appointments, orchestrating circumstances that will leave you speechless when they manifest. But there's a condition. There's always a condition with breakthrough blessings. This one requires your silence. Not forever. Not even for long. Just through December 3rd. Just through this threshold moment when heaven stamps approved on what's been pending over your name. But the enemy knows this. Hell's intelligence network picked up on God's movement over your life, and they've deployed every demon of provocation, every spirit of offense, every principality of Charles to do one thing: make you talk. Because here's the part that will shock you. The enemy is not after your words. He is after the blessing attached to your silence. Let me say that again so it sinks deep into your spirit. The enemy doesn't care what you say. He cares what you lose when you say it too soon. He's not trying to win an argument with you. He's trying to steal the momentum that's building toward your breakthrough. Think about Zechariah in Luke 1. The angel Gabriel appeared to him with the most incredible news. His elderly wife Elizabeth would bear a son who would prepare the way for the Messiah. But when Zechariah questioned it, when he spoke doubt instead of receiving in silence, Gabriel said, "You will be silent and not able to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words." Zechariah was struck mute. Not as punishment, but as protection. God knew that if Zechariah kept talking, kept questioning, kept processing out loud, he would talk himself and everyone around him out of the miracle. So heaven shut his mouth for 9 months until John the Baptist was born. Your silence right now is not weakness. It's weaponized faith. It's you trusting God enough to let him fight battles you don't even see yet. It's you understanding that some victories are won not by what you say, but by what you refuse to say. But I need you to understand the specific tactics the enemy is using right now. He's twisting your words before they even leave your mouth. He's setting traps in conversations that seem innocent. He's creating situations where speaking seems like the righteous thing to do, the necessary thing to do, the only thing to do. He's making silence feel like cowardice when it's actually your greatest act of courage. He's making you feel like you're letting people get away with things when really, you're letting God get the glory for handling it his way. He's convincing you that if you don't speak up now, you'll lose your chance, when the truth is if you speak up now, you'll lose what God was about to give you. You know what terrifies hell about you right now. It's not your prayers, it's not your faith. It's your obedience to shut your mouth when every fiber of your being wants to open it. Because disciplined silence in the face of provocation is the mark of someone who's been trained by the Holy Spirit. And trained believers are dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. So the question burning in the atmosphere around your life right now is this: will you hold your tongue for 3 more days? Or will you release words that cancel what heaven has already approved? Listen to me, chosen one. Every word you speak on December 3rd is either building your altar or tearing it down. There is no middle ground, no neutral territory. Your tongue tomorrow will either be a weapon in God's hand or a grenade in the enemy's arsenal. You've been here before, haven't you? You felt something stirring in your spirit, something sacred, something private between you and heaven. And what did you do? You told someone. Maybe it was your sister over Sunday dinner. Maybe it was your best friend on the phone. Maybe it was your spouse lying next to you in bed. You thought sharing would strengthen it. You thought speaking it would make it more real. But what happened instead? The moment you opened your mouth, something shifted. The person you told didn't celebrate with you, they questioned you. They doubted you. They smiled that painful smile that says, "Bless your heart, you're delusional." And suddenly, that fire in your chest that burned so bright began to flicker. The vision that seemed so clear started to blur. The promise that felt so certain began to feel foolish. That wasn't coincidence, beloved. That was warfare. Proverbs 29:11 cuts straight to the bone. A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it until afterwards. Did you catch that? Till afterwards. Not forever. Not in shame or fear, but until the appointed time when God says, "Now." Now you speak. You see, every revelation from heaven comes with a gestation period. Just like a mother doesn't announce her pregnancy the moment of conception, she waits. She protects. She guards that fragile, forming life inside her womb until the time is right to declare it to the world. Because she knows that what's growing in secret needs time to develop before it can survive the scrutiny of public eyes. Your December 3rd blessing is in its final trimester, and premature speech is a spiritual miscarriage. Think about Mary, the mother of Jesus. When the angel Gabriel appeared to her with the most earth-shattering announcement in human history, what did she do? Luke 2:19 tells us, "But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart." She didn't run through the streets of Nazareth shouting, "I'm carrying the Messiah." She didn't post it on the ancient equivalent of social media. She treasured it, she protected it, she held it close. Why? Because she understood something that most believers never learn. A seed talked about too soon is dug up before it sprouts. Let me ask you something that might sting. How many dreams have you buried by speaking them too early? How many prophecies have you aborted by sharing them with people who had no spiritual capacity to nurture them? How many miracles have you watched dissolve because you gave the enemy a battle plan before the war even started? A soldier reveals his strategy only if he wants to lose the war. The spiritual realm is not passive, chosen one. When God whispers a promise over your life, principalities and powers take note. They begin strategizing. They start positioning. They're looking for one thing: an opening. One careless word. One premature declaration. One conversation where you speak what you're not yet strong enough to protect. And the enemy doesn't need to defeat you directly. He just needs you to talk to the wrong person at the wrong time. One skeptical comment. One raised eyebrow. One "are you sure about that?" planted like a seed of doubt. That's all it takes to weaken what God was strengthening in silence. Ecclesiastes 3:7 declares there is a time to keep silence and a time to speak. December 3rd is your time to keep silence. Not because your voice doesn't matter, but because what's forming in the unseen needs your restraint more than it needs your announcement. Here's what the enemy knows that you're just now learning. A miracle spoken prematurely becomes a target. Think about Joseph. God gave him dreams of greatness, visions of his brothers bowing before him, of ruling with authority, of divine elevation. And what did 17-year-old Joseph do? He ran straight to his family and announced it. Genesis 37:5 says, "And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. They hated him more." His truth became their trigger. His revelation became his persecution. And what followed? Years in a pit, years in slavery, years in prison. All because he spoke too soon to people who weren't ready to celebrate what God was preparing. But here's the redemption in Joseph's story. When the time was finally right, when the dream matured into destiny, when Pharaoh summoned him from prison to palace in a single day, Joseph didn't have to announce anything. His elevation spoke for itself. Genesis 41:40 records Pharaoh declaring, "Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled." The very brothers who mocked his premature words would one day bow before his mature authority. But it took silence. It took waiting. It took learning when to speak and when to seal his lips. You're in your Joseph season right now. The dreams are real. The promises are valid. The breakthrough is coming. But if you speak on December 3rd what you're not supposed to speak, you're handing your enemies the ammunition they need to delay what God has already approved. There is one type of conversation that will destroy your December 3rd blessing. Just one. And I'll reveal it to you before this message ends. But first, you need to understand what you're protecting and why your silence is the most powerful weapon you possess right now. If this is speaking to you deeply, if something in your spirit is trembling with recognition, whisper in the comments, "Lord, teach me silence." Let that be your covenant. Let that be your surrender. Because what you're about to discover next will show you exactly who the enemy uses to steal your breakthrough. And they're closer than you think. Listen to me, dear one. I need you to understand something that's going to shatter everything this noisy world has taught you about power. The world told you that strength is in your voice. That power comes from speaking up, speaking out, speaking louder than everyone else. They convinced you that silence equals weakness. That if you're not talking, you're not winning. That if you're not defending yourself, you're being defeated. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie the enemy ever sold you? What if the most powerful weapon in your spiritual arsenal isn't your words, it's your silence? Think about this. When God wanted to part the Red Sea, did he shout? When Jesus wanted to calm the storm, did he argue with the wind? When the Father wanted to resurrect his Son, did he negotiate with death? No, beloved. God moves in silence. Heaven's greatest miracles happen in the hush. Psalm 46:10 doesn't say, "Speak up and know that I am God." It says, "Be still and know that I am God. Be still, not be loud, not be heard, be still." You've been fighting with your mouth when God wanted you to war with your silence. You've been defending yourself with words when heaven was preparing to defend you with wonders. You've been explaining your position when the Almighty was about to demonstrate His power. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me up at night praying for people just like you. You think your silence means you're backing down. You think holding your tongue means you're giving up. You think staying quiet means you're admitting defeat. Dear chosen one, that's not surrender. That's strategy, divine strategy. Let me ask you something that might sting. How many times have you spoken too soon and regretted it? How many arguments could have been avoided if you just waited 24 hours? How many relationships were damaged because you had to get the last word? How many blessings slipped through your fingers because you couldn't keep your mouth shut long enough for God to work? I'm not talking about being a doormat. I'm not talking about letting people walk all over you. I'm talking about something far more powerful than that. I'm talking about spiritual warfare that happens in the quiet. You see, when you hold your tongue, you're not being passive. You're being obedient. And obedience is the highest form of worship. Proverbs 17:28 tells us, "Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue." Did you catch that? Silence doesn't make you look weak. Silence makes you look wise. It makes people wonder what you know that they don't. It makes the enemy nervous because he can't figure out your next move. Think about Jesus before Pilate. The governor is interrogating him, demanding answers, trying to trap him with his own words. And what does Jesus do? He stands there in holy silence. Matthew 27:14 says, Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. That silence wasn't fear. That silence was power. That silence was Jesus saying, "I don't owe you an explanation. My Father is about to do something that will explain everything." Right now, some of you are in the same position. You've been attacked. You've been accused. You've been misunderstood. And every fiber in your being wants to speak up, defend yourself, set the record straight. But God is whispering, "Not yet, hold your tongue. I've got this." Here's the mystery that will change everything. God is not asking you to be silent because you are weak. He is asking you to be silent because you are close. Close to breakthrough. Close to vindication. Close to the moment when He steps in and silences your accusers permanently. But if you speak now, if you defend yourself now, you're telling God, "I don't trust you to handle this." Isaiah 30:15 declares, "In quietness and trust is your strength, not in loudness." Not in arguments, in quietness and trust. Heaven performs surgery in silence. Think about that. When a surgeon operates, what's the one thing required in the operating room? Silence. Focus. Precision. No distractions, no noise. Just skilled hands doing sacred work. That's what God is doing in your life right now. He's performing spiritual surgery. He's removing what doesn't belong. He's healing what's been broken. He's reconstructing what the enemy destroyed. But He needs you to be still. He needs you to stop talking long enough for Him to work. Every word you speak right now is like someone bursting into an operating room, screaming during a delicate procedure. You're not helping. You're hindering. You've been carrying this weight for 70, 80, maybe 90 years. You've learned to speak your mind, stand your ground, fight your battles. But what if this December 3rd, God is calling you to a different kind of strength? The strength to shut your mouth and let Him fight for you. Moses told the Israelites at the Red Sea, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Exodus 14:14. The same God who fought for them is ready to fight for you. But you have to get out of His way. Your silence isn't weakness, dear one. Your silence is warfare. Every moment you hold your tongue when you want to lash out, that's a victory. Every second you stay quiet when you want to defend yourself, that's faith in action. Every breath you take instead of words you could speak, that's you trusting that God's got this. But here's the urgency. Here's why December 3rd matters. The spiritual attack you've been under all year. It's been designed to provoke you into speaking prematurely, to trick you into opening your mouth before heaven's appointed time. Stay with me. What I'm about to reveal will explain why the enemy has been so desperate to make you talk. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will shake everything you thought you knew about spiritual warfare and divine timing. On December 3rd, God does not want you to explain yourself to anyone. Not to your children who question your choices. Not to your friends who don't understand your silence. Not to your spouse who's demanding answers. Not to anyone who's been poking at your spirit, asking questions that feel like interrogations. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That pressure, that invisible hand pressing against your lips every time you try to speak. That's not anxiety, beloved. That's divine intervention. Heaven is literally holding your tongue because what you're carrying is too precious to be exposed to the wrong ears. Here's what breaks my heart. I've watched too many of God's chosen ones lose their breakthrough in the last 72 hours before it manifested. Not because they sinned, not because they doubted, but because they explained themselves to people who had no spiritual clearance to hear their testimony. Think about this. When Mary discovered she was carrying the Messiah, who did she run to? Not the village gossips, not the religious leaders who would have stoned her. She ran to Elizabeth, the only person who could recognize what she was carrying without her having to explain it. Luke 1:41 tells us that when Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. Recognition without explanation. That's divine confirmation. But what happens when you explain yourself to the wrong people? Let me tell you something that's going to cut deep. Explaining exposes your heart to ears that were never meant to hold it. Defending drains your anointing faster than unbelief ever could, because every word you speak to justify yourself is energy you're pulling from the very blessing God is trying to birth through you. Some people ask questions not for clarity, but to gather ammunition. You know exactly who I'm talking about. That family member who keeps asking about your decisions with that tone in their voice. That neighbor who's always probing into your business under the disguise of concern. That church friend who wants to know your next move so they can whisper about it before you even take the step. They don't want understanding. They want information they can weaponize against your destiny. Proverbs 4:23 warns us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. But how many of you have been guarding your money, guarding your health, guarding your home, while leaving your heart completely exposed to people who were never qualified to handle what God planted there? December 3rd is your line in the sand. On this day, when they ask you why you've been so quiet, you smile and say nothing. When they demand to know what you're planning, you nod and change the subject. When they try to pull explanations out of you like extracting teeth, you remember that Jesus himself stood before Pilate and didn't open his mouth. Isaiah 53:7 declares, "He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth." If the Son of God knew when to be silent, who are we to think we need to defend ourselves to everyone who questions us? But here's where it gets supernatural. Here's the part that's going to blow your mind. Your silence on December 3rd is not avoidance. It is alignment. When you refuse to explain yourself, you're aligning your spirit with heaven's rhythm instead of earth's demands. You're saying to God, I trust you more than I need their approval. I value your timing more than their understanding. I'd rather have your blessing than their validation. And that posture, that holy defiance against the pressure to perform, to prove, to justify, that's what triggers the release of what's been held back. Think about Zechariah in Luke chapter 1. The angel Gabriel appeared to him with the promise that his elderly wife Elizabeth would bear a son. But Zechariah questioned it. He wanted proof. He needed explanation. And what did God do? He struck him mute. For 9 months, Zechariah couldn't speak a single word. Was that punishment? No, beloved. That was protection. God silenced him so he couldn't abort the miracle with his doubt-filled words. And the moment that baby was born, the moment the promise manifested, Zechariah's mouth was opened and he prophesied with more power than he'd ever spoken before. Your silence right now is protecting what your words could destroy. Every time you feel that urge to defend yourself on December 3rd, I want you to remember something. The people who are supposed to be in your life won't need explanations. They'll feel your anointing before you speak a word. They'll recognize God's hand on you without a dissertation. They'll celebrate your obedience without demanding a detailed report. But the ones who keep pushing for answers, they're revealing something. They're showing you they don't have the spiritual sensitivity to discern what God is doing. And if they can't discern it, they can't protect it. And what they can't protect, they'll eventually attack. Your silence is your shield. So, when December 3rd arrives and that conversation tries to corner you, the one where you're expected to defend your choices, explain your calling, justify your obedience, prove your worth, I want you to do something radical. I want you to smile, take a breath, and let the silence speak louder than any defense you could offer. Because, beloved, God is about to vindicate you in ways that will leave them speechless, but only if you stay silent long enough for Him to speak on your behalf. And now I'm going to show you what happens in the spiritual realm when you stay silent, and why the enemy is terrified of your obedience on this specific day. Listen to me, chosen one. While you've been wrestling with whether to speak or stay silent, do you have any idea what's been happening in the unseen realm? Do you understand what heaven has been orchestrating while you thought you were just being quiet? Your silence on December 3rd isn't passive. It's not weakness. It's not you backing down or giving up. Your silence is the most violent act of spiritual warfare you can wage right now. Let me tell you what happens when you obey this divine restraint. Let me show you what God releases when you finally learn to close your mouth and open heaven's floodgates. When you hold your tongue on December 3rd, heaven fights battles you never knew existed. Right now, there are conversations happening about you in rooms you've never entered. There are decisions being made that will impact your next 10 years. There are people discussing your name, your future, your destiny. And if you speak too soon, if you release the wrong words into the atmosphere, you will contaminate what God is purifying on your behalf. Proverbs 21:23 doesn't whisper, it declares, "Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from troubles." Not some troubles, not a few troubles, from troubles. Your silence is your shield. But here's what will shake you to your core. While you're being quiet, angels are blocking spiritual sabotage you don't even see coming. There's an attack that was scheduled against your finances this week. There's a scheme designed to destroy a relationship you treasure. There's a trap set with your name on it. But your obedience to silence is causing angelic interference. Psalm 34:7 tells us, "The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them." Your holy restraint activates heaven's military. Think about this. When Jehoshaphat faced impossible odds in 2 Chronicles 20, God told him something that defies human logic. "Ye shall not need to fight in this battle. Set yourselves, stand ye still, and see the salvation of the Lord. Stand still. Don't move. Don't speak. Don't strategize. Just be quiet and watch me work." What if your silence is God's instruction for you to stop fighting and let Him annihilate what's been coming against you? Right now, in this very moment, God is aligning the right people for your next season. But they can't find you if you're making too much noise. They can't hear heaven's instructions about you if your voice is drowning out God's voice. Your silence creates a frequency that attracts divine connections while repelling demonic distractions. Heaven signs papers you never saw. Deals are being finalized. Doors are being unlocked. Provisions are being transferred. And it's all happening because you learn to shut your mouth and trust the process. I'm talking to the grandmother who's been tempted to call that family member and give them a piece of your mind. I'm talking to the grandfather who's been rehearsing that speech you want to give your ungrateful children. I'm talking to every senior saint who's been holding words like weapons, ready to release them the moment you get the chance. Don't do it. Not on December 3rd. Not yet. Because when divine favor flows without resistance, it moves faster than you can imagine. When you remove your voice from the equation, God's voice becomes the only sound that matters. And what He speaks over your life in your silence will accomplish more in one day than your words could accomplish in a decade. Angels move furniture in rooms you have not entered yet. They're rearranging your future. They're repositioning opportunities. They're removing obstacles you would have crashed into if you had spoken too soon. Your silence gives them clearance to work without interference. But here's the mystery that will blow your mind. Secrets meant to harm you collapse when you refuse to engage. That gossip about you, it dies in the mouth of the person spreading it when you don't respond. That accusation against you, it falls flat when you don't defend yourself. That trap set for you, it springs shut on empty air when you're not there because silence relocated you. A silent believer is a dangerous warrior. The enemy doesn't know what you're thinking. He can't predict your next move. He can't manipulate your emotions if you're not reacting. Your silence makes you invisible to demonic radar. This is why Jesus stood silent before Pilate. This is why he didn't defend himself when they accused him. Matthew 27:14 says, "He answered him to never a word," insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. Even Pilate, a hardened Roman governor, was shaken by the power of Christ's silence. What if your silence on December 3rd carries the same weight? What if heaven is waiting to see if you'll trust God enough to keep your mouth shut while everyone around you is screaming for you to speak? Your silence will open a door your voice could not. That promotion your words couldn't secure, silence will deliver it. That relationship your explanations couldn't fix, silence will heal it. That blessing your prayers couldn't release, silence will birth it. Because when you finally understand that your tongue is a key, you'll stop using it to unlock doors God has sealed shut. You'll stop speaking your way out of what God is trying to speak you into. If you're ready for what happens next, if you're ready to see what God does when you finally learn to be quiet, type below right now. Amen. I receive it, because beloved, the countdown has begun. December 3rd is almost here, and what you choose to do with your tongue on that day will determine what heaven chooses to do with your destiny. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Before God releases His greatest blessings, He doesn't send you another sermon. He doesn't send you another prophet. He sends you 3 tests wrapped in silence. And most people fail all 3 without ever knowing they were being tested. Right now, this very moment, you are in one of these tests. And December 3rd is the day heaven has marked as your examination deadline. Let me tell you about the first test, the one that's probably crushing your chest right now. The test of restraint. Someone said something about you last week that made your blood boil. Didn't they? Maybe it was your own child who dismissed you. Maybe it was that neighbor who's been spreading lies. Maybe it was someone at church who questioned your faith, your character, your worth. And everything in you wanted to respond. Everything in you wanted to defend yourself, to set the record straight, to put them in their place. But something stopped you. Something held your tongue like an invisible hand covering your mouth. That wasn't weakness, beloved. That was God watching to see if you finally learned that not every battle requires your voice. Proverbs 29:11 says, "A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back." Do you see that? The fool speaks immediately. The wise one holds back, not because they're scared, not because they don't have the words, but because they know something the fool doesn't. Some battles are won in silence. God is watching how you respond when you're provoked. He's watching to see if you'll defend yourself or if you'll let him be your defense. Because here's the truth that will shake you. Every time you rush to defend yourself, you're telling God you don't trust him to do it for you. David knew this. When King Saul was hunting him like an animal, when David had the chance to kill Saul in that cave, what did he do? He cut a piece of Saul's robe and walked away. 1 Samuel 24:12 records his words, "May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge the wrongs you have done to me, but my hand will not touch you." David passed the test of restraint, and that's when God moved him from the cave to the throne. But there's a second test most people don't see coming. The test of secrecy. How many times have you been so excited about what God showed you that you ran and told everyone? You told your sister, your best friend, your prayer group. And somehow, after you spoke it out loud, the blessing started to shrink. The promise started to fade. The miracle started to delay. You thought you were sharing good news, but you were actually casting pearls before swine. Matthew 7:6 warns us, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs." Not everyone deserves the blueprint of your blessing. Not everyone has earned access to your prophetic downloads. Some people are assigned by the enemy to abort your miracle through doubt disguised as concern. Joseph made this mistake once. At 17 years old, he had a dream from God and immediately told his brothers. Genesis 37:5 says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. His own family threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and he spent the next 13 years paying for words he spoke too soon. But here's what breaks my heart: you've been doing the same thing. You've been telling your dreams to people who are spiritually asleep. You've been sharing your visions with folks who can't see past their own limitations. And every time you speak your promise out loud to the wrong ears, you're giving the enemy ammunition to delay what God already approved. God is testing whether you can carry a secret, whether you can hold a promise in your heart without needing human validation, whether you trust Him enough to let the blessing grow in silence before it's revealed in public. Mary understood this. When the angel told her she would birth the Messiah, Luke 2:19 says, Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. She didn't run to social media. She didn't call a press conference. She treasured it. She pondered it. She protected it. And now we come to the third test, the one that separates the chosen from the curious. The test of stillness. You want to move. You want to act. You want to do something, anything, to make this breakthrough happen faster. You've been looking at your bank account, and you want to force a solution. You've been thinking about that relationship, and you want to control the outcome. You've been staring at that closed door, and you want to kick it down yourself. But God is saying, be still. Exodus 14:14 declares, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still, not busy, not frantic, not forcing. Like a rocket on the launch pad, you must remain perfectly still before the launch sequence begins. A whisper from God is louder than a shout from the world. But you can't hear whispers when you're running in circles. You can't receive downloads when you're distracted by noise. Before a rocket launches, it must remain perfectly still. Every system locked in place. Every calculation complete. Absolute stillness before explosive movement. Your silence is not a delay, it is your final qualification. God is watching to see if you've matured enough to move only when He says move. Not when your emotions say move. Not when your bank account says move. Not when your fear says move, when he says move. These three tests: restraint, secrecy, stillness, they're all happening right now. And December 3rd is the day God has marked as your breakthrough point if you pass. But here's what you need to understand as we go deeper into this mystery. These tests aren't just about what you don't say. They're about what God is preparing to say through you. Stay with me. The next part is the reason you were sent here. You know exactly who I'm talking about, don't you? That person whose name just flashed through your mind like lightning. Maybe it's your adult daughter who called you last week, not to ask how you're doing, but to lecture you about something you said at Thanksgiving dinner 30 years ago. Maybe it's your son who rolls his eyes every time you try to share the wisdom you've earned through 7 decades of living. Maybe it's your younger sister who still treats you like you don't know anything, even though you raised her children when she couldn't. Or maybe it's that spouse sitting in the next room right now, the one who hasn't really listened to you in so long that you've stopped trying to explain your heart. You open your mouth, and before the words even form, you can see their face already dismissing you, already preparing their rebuttal, already checking their phone. Listen to me, beloved. That pressure building in your chest right now, that heat rising in your throat, that's exactly what the enemy wants. Because he knows something about December 3rd that you're just beginning to understand. He knows that if he can get you to open your mouth in anger, in defense, in frustration, if he can get you to speak from your wound instead of your wisdom, he can steal what God has been preparing to release. Here's what's going to break your heart and heal it at the same time. That person who triggers you isn't your problem. They're your test. Some people are sandpaper, dear one. Rough, irritating, grating against every nerve you have left. But God doesn't waste sandpaper. He uses it to polish the diamond that's been buried under years of pain, rejection, and feeling invisible. Every time they dismiss you, every time they interrupt you, every time they treat your 75 years of experience like it's worth less than their Google search, God is watching to see if you'll pass the test of restraint. Proverbs 15:1 tells us, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." But here's what most people miss: a soft answer doesn't mean you speak softly. Sometimes a soft answer means you don't speak at all. Sometimes the most powerful response is the sound of your silence while heaven takes notes. James 1:19 commands us, "Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, slow to speak." Not just careful with your words, but slow, deliberate, measured, restrained. Because your tongue carries more power than you realize, and December 3rd is not the day to unleash it. But what if I told you something that's going to shift everything? What if I told you that someone is watching how you respond to that trigger person? And it's not who you think. It's not your family watching. It's not your friends keeping score. It's heaven itself leaning in, waiting to see if you've learned the secret that most people die without discovering, that the enemy uses mouths, but God uses silence. Think about Jesus before Pilate. The most powerful man in Judea is interrogating the Son of God, and what does Jesus do? Isaiah 53:7 prophesied it centuries before. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. The creator of the universe, who could have called down legions of angels, who could have spoken worlds into existence or civilizations into dust, he chose silence. Not because he was weak, because he was passing a test that would save humanity. Your silence on December 3rd isn't about avoiding conflict, chosen one. It's about passing a prophetic test of restraint that will determine what doors open in December 4th, 5th, and beyond. God is not asking you to be a doormat. He's asking you to be a diamond that's finally finished being polished. If this reminds you of someone in your life, if you can see their face right now, if you can feel that familiar frustration rising, I need you to do something. Don't type their name. Don't rehearse your defense. Just whisper 3 words. Lord, guard my tongue. Because what's coming next will explain why your restraint on December 3rd is about to unlock something you've been praying for since 1987. Listen to me, chosen one. Right now, at this very moment, there's a war being waged over your life that you can't see with your natural eyes. And the weapon the enemy fears most isn't your prayers, isn't your fasting, isn't even your faith. It's your silence. You've been taught your whole life that speaking up is strength, that silence is weakness, that if you don't defend yourself, no one will. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie hell ever whispered in your ear? When you hold your tongue on December 3rd, something supernatural happens in the courts of heaven. God doesn't just speak for you, He roars. He doesn't just defend you, He silences every false accusation with the thunder of His authority. Exodus 14:14 says it plainly, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still, not silent because you're defeated, still because you know who fights your battles. Think about Job for a moment. This man lost everything. His children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. His own wife told him to curse God and die. His friends gathered around him like vultures, accusing him of secret sins, pointing fingers, demanding answers. And what did Job do? He sat in silence. 7 days and 7 nights, the Bible says. Not a word, just silence. But what was happening in that silence? God was building a case. God was preparing a courtroom victory so complete, so overwhelming, that when He finally spoke, every accuser had to put their hand over their mouth in shame. Job 42:10 tells us that the Lord restored Job's fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Twice as much. Not because Job argued his case, because he trusted God to argue it for him. Your silence is a courtroom where God is your defense attorney. Dear soul, I need you to understand something that will change everything. When you say nothing, heaven says everything. While you're biting your tongue, angels are silencing false witnesses. While you're choosing restraint, divine peace is pushing back the chaos that's been surrounding your name. While you're staying quiet, blessings are moving toward you without the resistance your words would have created. The enemy loses his evidence when you refuse to give him ammunition. Think about all those times you defended yourself and it only made things worse. Think about the arguments you won but the relationships you lost. Think about the last words you spoke in anger that you wish you could take back. Your words gave the enemy exactly what he needed, evidence that you're not who you claim to be. But on December 3rd, God is asking you to do something radical. He's asking you to let Him be God. He's asking you to close your mouth and open heaven's courtroom. He's asking you to trust that what you refuse to say, He will announce with such power that no one will ever question it again. Isaiah 41:10 promises you, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Do you hear that? He will uphold you, not might. Not maybe. Will. But only when you get out of His way. Here's what's happening right now in the spiritual realm. There are blessings scheduled to arrive in your life in the next 72 hours. Financial breakthroughs, relational healings, divine opportunities, but they're wrapped in a condition: your silence. One wrong word, one defensive statement, one moment of speaking when you should be still, and those blessings deter to someone else who knows how to wait on the Lord. When you say nothing, heaven says everything. What you refuse to say on December 3rd, God will announce loudly in the days ahead. And when He speaks, beloved, even your enemies will have to acknowledge that the hand of the Almighty is upon your life. So here's my question for you. Can you trust God enough to let Him fight this battle? Can you hold your tongue when everything in you wants to scream? Can you be still when your flesh wants to strike back? Because what happens next depends entirely on what you don't say today. Beloved chosen one, as we come to the end of this divine encounter, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, December 3rd is not just another date on your calendar, it's your divine checkpoint. The silence God is asking of you isn't weakness, it's warfare. When you hold your tongue, heaven opens its mouth on your behalf. Second, your restraint today becomes your reward tomorrow. What you refuse to say in this season, God will announce with such power that even your doubters will have to acknowledge His hand upon your life. And third, you are not walking this path alone. The same God who fought for Moses at the Red Sea, who defended Job in his darkest hour, who vindicated Joseph after years of false accusation, that same God is working in your life right now, in this very moment. He hasn't forgotten you. He's positioning you, and beyond God's presence, you have this community. Thousands of brothers and sisters who understand your struggle, who believe in your calling, and who are ready to stand with you in prayer. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're a family united by faith. So let me ask you this: can you trust God enough to let your silence speak louder than your words? Before you go, join me in prayer. Wherever you are right now, place your hand on your heart and let these words wash over your spirit. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul hearing this message. You see their battles, you know their pain, you feel the weight of every word they've been holding back. Lord, give them supernatural strength to remain silent when their flesh wants to speak. Protect their tongues from premature declarations. Guard their hearts from the enemy's accusations. God, I pray that you would fight for them in ways they cannot fight for themselves. Silence every false witness. Shut the mouths of their accusers. Let your favor speak so loudly that no one can deny your hand upon their lives. Give them peace that surpasses understanding. Give them courage to trust your timing. Give them wisdom to know that this silence is not surrender, it's victory being prepared in secret. And Father, on December 4th and beyond, let the breakthrough be so undeniable, so overwhelming, that they will look back on this moment and weep with gratitude that they trusted you enough to be still. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us what God spoke to your heart today. Ask your questions, we're here to pray with you. And if this message touched your soul, please share it with someone who needs to hear that their silence is not weakness, but a weapon heaven is waiting to unleash. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for trusting God enough to listen. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because your breakthrough journey is just beginning, and we're walking it together. Remember, chosen one, hold your tongue. Trust the process. Watch God work. Until we meet again, walk in divine silence and unshakable faith.